They never explicitly say it or explain it throughout this movie, but it is a recurring theme within it and carries all the way through until its end, and is actually a very huge and important part of the ending of this all-time great film. Despite that, though, I have never heard anyone ever mention this unique and particular theme throughout all these decades since this movie's theatrical release. And in these 30-some years since that release, there have been countless articles written about this great film and an innumerable amount of YouTube videos that have been made that have to do with this fan-favorite flick. But nobody, and I do mean nobody in my experience, has ever brought this theme up and recognized its incredible ingenuity within this masterpiece. I'm sure most of those article writers and YouTube content creators, in the back of their mind and at their subconscious level, were aware of this theme's existence and even of its importance within this blockbuster film. But none of them have thought deep enough to really bring this particular ingenious and massively powerful, but so much less overt and so much more covert, Terminator 2 theme to the surface. So what is it? What has it been? Out with it then, now that you've hinted at enough to really pique everyone's curiosity through and through, right? Well, the first instance of it, or our first major and obvious occurrence of this particular theme, is shortly after John Connor and the T-800 had just successfully rescued John's mother from that mental health hospital. And as they're making their way out of town to the quiet and dark night, we see John and his mother get into a bit of a spat about that whole high-risk ordeal. And in the aftermath of it all, we also see a visibly saddened and emotionally hurt young John Connor, and perhaps even an emotionally shaken one too. Well, this was the first time in this movie that we saw this particular and unique human behavior in this otherwise highly intense and big action dark and apocalyptically focused sci-fi flick. And it was certainly the first time that the T-800 had ever encountered this crime behavior before in this fictional timeline of his too, because we then saw the T-800 going on to inquire about this very foreign and alien behavior to him, to which John acted out in denial, not wanting to admit his hurt that he risked his life to rescue his own mother, only to be scolded for it and unappreciated as well. But the scene kind of just abruptly ends there. We get no real answer or resolution to the strange behavior that this human child John Connor was exhibiting. Of course, strange to the T-800, and not to virtually every single human being who has ever walked this earth, and who has been seeing and hearing this crime behavior from plenty of others since childhood, and maybe even the most from themselves too. But crying in the T-800? Bah! The T-800 has no concept of this crying thing and knows nothing about it. And before this siding with the humans thing that he's been reprogrammed to take part in, he did not care or concern himself with it at all. The T-800 was manufactured by his cybernetic god, king and ruler Skynet, to simply be an emotionless and unfeeling grim reaper or killing machine. It seems pretty clear to me that his original programming did not include this crying thing or had a use for it all. But once again, the scene just ended without a clear and direct answer to this intriguing and out-of-the-blue question from Mr. T-800, who wisely does not press the matter anymore, and together they all just drive quietly into the night, as well as just as quickly as they possibly could to their next hideout spot. Sometime later, while John and his de facto father, Mr. T-800, were fixing the team's truck together. This time, though, instead of being indirect or doing more beating around the bush like before, the Terminator just straight up and point-blank asks little Johnny, "Why do you cry?" It was a very poignant, touching, and heartfelt moment when this former no-conscience killing machine once again inquired about the strange and completely alien behavior to him. And John's reply, I guess, was as best a reply that a child of his age and level of emotional development could give. Because John kind of just beats around the bush and kind of struggles to find an answer for the Terminator. Then he just sort of gives a half answer, or basically a cop-out answer, if you ask me. But the Terminator, once again, does not press the matter any further, still just wisely letting time do its thing with us all, once more. But at this point, many of you have probably already been thinking, why was all those moments about crying even in this Terminator 2 film at all? Let alone also having to be this big of a deal in it too, in an action robots versus human sci-fi franchise. Well, the answer should have been pretty clear and obvious by now for most or all of you what our quote-unquote secret Terminator 2 theme has been this whole time, and why it was even made to be a thing in this film to begin with. But if it's still quite unclear to you, well then, here it is, this crying topic that we've been talking about, has been our quote-unquote secret Terminator 2 theme, and this video's main topic this whole time. And this particular consistent but oh so subtle theme that was put into place and scattered throughout this award-winning film, I really do think, was ingeniously included to contrast and to differentiate us humans from these mechanical robots and conscience-less killing machines that we have been facing throughout the entirety of this movie's story. And what transpired in the final minutes of this crazy roller coaster of a ride that is this T2 film is what brilliantly, powerfully, and beautifully finally gives our T-800 hero the answer that he had been searching for and inquire about so much since approximately the middle of this journey that they had embarked on together. And with that brilliant and iconic line of, "I know now why you cry, but it's something I can never do," just put such a beautiful bow on top of this beautiful sci-fi action present, and to close up this very surprisingly deeply emotional and devastating ending for a super intense and high-action sci-fi flick. So this brilliant and all-time best Terminator 2 film has not only been an incredibly entertaining action movie, but also one of surprising complexity and layers, as well as brilliant and thought-provoking writing. So what a story and what an extraordinary journey of loss, hope, sacrifice, and surprising depth that this all-time great film has had, and one that has entertained and inspired millions since its first release, and it continues to do so to this very day. Bravo!